can you talk about why you fasted and what you feel you have accomplished now that the House has ended without passing immigration reform?
Well, thank you, Amy. First of all, we were haunted by the fact that last year, 463 people died in the desert trying to come to the United States in search of a better life. Over 2 million people have been deported from the United States. And, these are numbers, but beyond those numbers, there's real people, real human beings with families who love them and who they loved. And they will never be back with their families because they died in the desert, or children are left behind when their mom or dad are deported. And they cry themselves to sleep, wondering when they'll see their parents again. And we just couldn't stand to continue to see this human suffering that's going on in our community. So we decided that we would go on a fast to dramatize, to put a human face on this moral crisis facing our country. And I feel very fortunate that we touched the heart of America. We had thousands and thousands of people joining our fast, not only in the United States, but around the world. I think that we managed to unify all sectors of our community in support of immigration reform. And even though the Congress left town without doing anything about immigration reform, I think that there's no doubt that they have to do something now. And we are going to keep pushing. We are taking our fast out into every congressional district so that when they come back to Washington in January, they will have to act and finish the work of creating a just and humane immigration system.
Well, Eliseo, we've heard this, though, about that we're near or possibly close to some kind of a solution on immigration reform now for several years. Back in 2007, there was a possibility of a deal then. Yesterday, I think in Los Angeles, City Councilman Gil Cedillo and some other California politicians began calling for President Obama to act himself if nothing is done by Congress within the next few months. They're calling for him to use his own executive authority, as he did with the Dreamers, to basically halt massive deportations that have been occurring under his administration. What's your sense of whether that should be the next step if nothing happens, let's say in January and February, from the new Congress?
Well, I think that this is a shared responsibility, and that both the president and the Congress have authority within their own the Constitution to do certain things. The president, for example, has the power through executive authority, like he did with the Dreamers, to provide some relief to all of these deportations that are going on that are tearing families apart. But the president is also right that the only permanent solution is for the Congress to reform the immigration laws. And we will be pushing really hard to make sure that the Congress, in fact, does act. But in the meantime, I think the president needs to really take a look and prioritize the enforcement of the laws through the Department of Homeland Security to focus on criminals, not on everyday workers.
You were sitting next to him as you were fasting, and he came to visit. What did you talk to him about, and did you ask him about that?
We did. We said to the president that and shared with him the stories of families who have been torn apart by deportation, and he heard us. I think that he was moved, as was the First Lady, by all of this story after story about the impact of this system. And I think the president told us that he was going to continue looking at this and would work with us to try and figure out how we could work this out. And we're hopeful that as the days goes on, that hopefully we'll be able to figure out a way of stopping this pain and suffering that still continues today in our communities.
Eliseo Medina, you worked alongside Cesar Chavez. Can you talk about, well, a comparison of movements?
Well, let me just say, that Cesar was an organizational genius, an inspiration, a life-changing force for all of us. Myself, who used to be a farm worker in California, with an 8th grade education, no hope for the future until I met Cesar. And I see that movement that he began as continuing today, because we're talking about the same things. We're talking about respect. We're talking about dignity, about people being appreciated for the work they do and for their contributions. And what's different today, perhaps, is that we now have a much broader coalition of conscience that wants to see things done right for working people and for immigrants. And it includes business and labor and the faith community, Mormons, Baptists, Catholics, evangelicals. It includes community groups, environmental groups, Republicans and Democrats. There is a unique consensus on immigration reform that is broader than we ever had in the farm workers movement. And I think that we are the descendants of Cesar's vision for this country and for our community. And I think that we're going to win immigration reform just like Cesar won many victories in the fields of California. This is the right cause. This is the right time. I think the American people demands it. The Republicans need it for their own political needs. And I think at the end, it will be good for America. It will be good for immigrants, and we will get it done. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
But Eliseo, even within the labor movement, there was a long walk on this issue of immigration reform, wasn't there? The early labor movement, the AFL-CIO, to a certain extent, even the farm workers for a while saw the immigrant labor as a threat to domestic U.S. labor. Could you talk about that process of being first waging the battle within the labor movement to change its position before now this broader fight among the American people?
Well, unfortunately, the early labor movement saw immigrants as competition rather than allies. And for many years, they were taking a position to try and restrict immigration because they saw immigrants as taking the jobs of American workers. Obviously, business didn't see it that way because what business wanted to do is make as much of a profit as they could. And if they hiring undocumented workers would help in doing that, that's what they did. It's ironic because the labor movement was founded by immigrants. For example, our own union and SEIU, we were founded by janitors in Chicago who were immigrants from places like Poland, from Ireland, from the Czech Republic. We are now, as a labor movement, going back to our roots, to advocating for people who come to this country in search of the American dream. And it was difficult at first, beginning to shift from what had been basically an isolationist position to one that it says, our job as a labor movement is to unite all workers so that we can all fight together for improving the wages and the benefits of everybody, for our mutual benefit. And so while it took some time, I'm happy to say that for the last 15 years, we've all been united. We had building trades, we have construction unions, we had industrial unions, all fasting in the tent and all uniting to fight for immigrants' rights, working together with business. I mean, who would have thunk it? The Chamber of Commerce and the Change to Win Federation and the AFL-CIO together on anything. But this one issue overcomes all those barriers and divisions and brings us together because at the end of the day, it'll be good for the economy, it'll be good for working people, and it'll be good for us as a nation of immigrants.